Globalization is really a consequence of certain circumstances and conditions of living, like a growth medium for a kind of organism. The growth medium in this case has been extraordinarily reliable supplies of very cheap fossil fuel and relative international stability for about a generation. And that's produced the extraordinary web of global economic relations we've been either enjoying or suffering, depending on whose point of view you take. The industrial experience has been a kind of a story with a beginning and a middle and an end. And, it starts where the population in Europe and in England particularly starts to increase in the 17th century. And wood becomes more and more scarce in England, and they start using coal. And at first they're just picking it up off the ground or digging it out of shallow pits, or in some cases just taking it off the beaches. And eventually they have to dig more and more coal, and they're digging deeper mines. And you dig deep enough in a coal mine, it starts to flood. Well, somebody develops a pump to get rid of the water in the coal mines. And the pump is powered by this new thing, a steam engine, which can run on the same material that you're pumping. And then a few decades later, somebody figures out, well, we got to move all this coal. Maybe we can take this steam engine pump and put it on some kind of an engine that will pull a train of cars that will be loaded with coal. And we'll move the coal from the coal mine to where it's needed. And by, a few more decades go by, and you have this elaborate railroad system being built in England and continental Europe and the United States, but really first in England and the United States. And, that's really when the industrial story gets serious traction and takes off. And all kinds of engines are now being designed and built and used. And what you're really getting is the replacement of tools with machines. And more elaborate machines, in some cases being used to make more machines. And that really starts to get underway big time around the 1840s or 50s. All that stuff is run on coal until in 1859, unemployed railroad conductor named Edwin Drake drills the first oil well in Pennsylvania using equipment that's designed for water wells. And so the oil industry starts, and it's first used for illumination, because we are now running a society that needs light after the sun goes down, especially in factories, and we need better light than you can get from a candle. And whale oil turns out to be an extremely limited resource. We're decimating the sperm whale population by the 1850s. So you get this wonderful thing, this stuff they call rock oil, which can be used for illumination. And so, the kerosene lamp was new technology during the Civil War. The kerosene lamp was the iPod of the Civil War. Great new technology, really bright. And so that goes on for about 30 years, And the next big thing is that we discover we can use oil to run engines that previously were run on coal. So we start to run ships and trains. Not trains so much, mostly ships are the first thing that really start to be shifted over to oil. And Winston Churchill does that in a big way when he converted the British Navy from coal to oil just before World War I, because he realized that ships run on oil would be much more maneuverable and have longer range and be quicker and more nimble. And, then we get the automobile and the takeoff of the automobile age and the airplane and all that. And that brings us up pretty much to the modern period. Our consumption of oil has gone up steadily since we first started using it, to the degree that the world now uses a little bit more than 80 million barrels of oil a day. Now, in America, we use a quarter of the world's crude oil in America every day. That would be 20 million barrels a day. Every 5 days, we use 100 million barrels of oil in the United States. Every 50 days, we use 1 billion barrels of oils. 10 times 100 million is 1 billion. There are about 7 periods of 50 in every year. And so we use about 7 billion barrels of oil a year in America. It is generally understood that we started out in America with about 200 billion barrels plus of oil in our original endowment. And we're now down to about 28 billion. Okay? So if we weren't getting any oil imports from the rest of the world, and more than half, almost 3/4 of our oil now is now imported, between 2/3 and 3/4. If we weren't getting that, and we had to depend only on our own oil, we would use every last drop of American oil in 4 years. Now, that's something strange to contemplate because, in fact, more than 2/3 of the remaining oil in the world comes from a particular region in the world, the Middle East, where the people don't like us very much.